Cross the rainbow bridge of Asgard, where the booming heavens roar. You'll behold in breathless wonder the god of thunder, mighty Thor.
Asgard, the rainbow bridge, the god of thunder. I'm not going to go into the background in the Norse mythology because, frankly, those three things I just mentioned are the only points of contact the Marvel character had with the stories in the Eddas and elsewhere. Oh, Odin and Loki were there, but they fall under the general category of Asgard. Freya never comes up. In the main stories, Balder is a pal of Thor's, that's about it. Heimdall does guard the bridge, but again, those three general things are the only points of contact. As for Thor, no chariot, no goats, no magic belt or gloves, just the hammer. And while in the comics he did eventually get matched up with the goddess Sif, for a big chunk of his run he was head over heels for a mortal woman named Jane Foster. The first episode is called Trapped by Loki.
Beyond our segment of time and space stands eternal Asgard, the citadel of the Norse gods, which is connected to Earth by the Rainbow Bridge, known as Bifrost. And in the furthest reach of the realm, we find a lonely tree in which is imprisoned Loki, the Prince of Evil.
Aside from the mispronunciation of Bifrost, this is off to a good start. In the Marvel mythology, he's Prince of Evil, whereas in Norse mythology, he was more like a trickster, a prankster, god of mischief and screwing with people. But from the very beginning, in the Marvel comic universe, he was pure evil. The other gods imprisoned him in this tree until his plight would cause one creature to shed a tear for him. He knows nobody in Asgard would do that willingly, but over centuries he's been learning to exert his will and gain control of the tree. Today it pays off. Heimdall is walking by.
Loki commands a leaf to fall in front of the unsuspecting warder, causing his eye to smart and finally to shed a tear.
I have succeeded! At last I am free! Free to cause discord, to wreak havoc, and to seek revenge against the one responsible for my years of imprisonment, Thor, god of thunder.
Next time you write up that contract, be more specific about what kind of tear is required.
Traveling at the speed of thought, the merciless immortal reaches our slumbering planet and mystically changes into modern dress.
There's no need to change his clothes. He's in 60s New York. He'll fit right in with the burgeoning hippie scene. Before he made this trip, he conjured up an image of Thor. He was at a hospital entertaining sick children.
Yes, Thor was here, bless his heart. He made the children so happy. Then he left. I don't know where he is now. Oh, why, he's gone.
Pro tip, Loki. If you want to stay incognito, you need to remember that humans don't do that, not even in Irwin Allen shows. Loki doesn't seem to know Thor's current situation. He first appeared in 1962 in Marvel's variety comic Journey into Mystery. That was where we met Dr. Donald Blake, a basic family physician who had a gimpy leg like I do and walked with a cane. Through a series of circumstances, he found himself in possession of a very special cane. When he stamped it on the ground, he turned into Thor. Much later, Odin would explain how that came about, but it doesn't need to concern us right now. What matters is, Loki didn't get the memo.
I must find Thor without revealing my own presence. Only some mysterious catastrophe will bring him to the scene.
The sort of thing that happens to be Loki's specialty. How fortuitous.
It's beyond belief.
He's been transformed into living negative. Help us, somebody help!
Not only that, look at all those people he changed into floating heads. When Captain America, Iron Man, and Daredevil all showed up and Thor didn't, Loki gave up and went home.
A few short blocks away, Dr. Don Blake and his lovely nurse hear the commotion.
What is it, Doctor? What's happening?
Some supernatural force is at work. I must help, but not as Dr. Don Blake.
But, Doctor, why, he's gone.
Don Blake could never do that. When he needed to find a private place to change to Thor, he most often walked there. or limped if you simply must. And by the way, her name really is Lovely Nurse. She started going by Jane Foster to spite her parents.
Once again, I must change my cane into the magic hammer.
Of Thor, god of thunder.
Love the voice change. It's just like what we have in the New Adventures of Superman. Oh my, something terrible is happening. I must be quick and change into Wonder Dude, mighty superhero!
Here I come to save the day.
It's Mighty Thor!
Ah, my simple feat of enchantment has done its work well.
Clear the street. Some sinister magical force is at work. As I rotate my hammer, antimatter particles will be emitted. There, it's working, wondrously whirling like a super fan. It blows the antimatter particles at the negative victims, causing the antimatter to reverse their atoms, transforming them into positive humans once more.
He got his PhD in particle physics from Asgard University.
Greetings, Thor. It's been a long, long time, hasn't it?
A long time? I do not understand.
I see you do not remember me. Perhaps this will refresh your recollection.
Loki, you!
Aw, what gave it away? It's the hat, isn't it?
So now you recognize me, the god you imprisoned, the god who has come to Earth seeking vengeance.
I know not how you escaped, but you must not bring your evil here.
Enough talk. I challenge you to battle, Thunder God. Come, let us battle high in the air, above these insignificant mortals.
I must accept his challenge. I have no other choice.
Besides, Thor beat him once before, so he has no reason to think this will be anything but a repeat of last time. While Loki uses a flying carpet to get up there, Thor has his own mode of transportation.
Whirling his hammer above his head, the Thunder God rises like a living helicopter.
I'll maneuver him into a position where his hammer reflects the blinding rays of the sun directly into his eyes. With my power of suggestion, he will soon be hypnotized. You are tired, Thor. Too tired to remain awake. You must sleep. Sleep. Sleep.
Safe and restful sleep, sleep, sleep.
Loki has him completely mesmerized. But before he starts sending Thor to do his bidding, he needs some insurance.
What if something should snap him out of his trance? So long as he possesses his enchanted hammer, I can never rest easy. I must get it away from him before it's too late. I command you to give me your enchanted hammer.
I cannot obey you, Loki. By the supreme will of Odin, the magic hammer must never be taken from Thor.
According to the legends, Loki can't lift it anyway. Thor is the only one strong enough to handle it. So while Loki's giving himself a hernia trying to pick it up, Thor can punch his lights out. Not Loki's most brilliant plan.
I must resort to trickery. Look, Thor! A giant sea beast attacking that small boat.
Instinctively, the God of Thunder hurls his mighty mallet toward the image conjured up by Loki. But the hammer's greatest power is the power of returning to the hand that has thrown it.
Shouldn't Loki have already known that? If I remember correctly, this episode was taken from one of the earliest comics, I think before Thor got his own title, but don't hold me to that. Anyway, they were still establishing the mythos around their new incarnation of Thor, so I have a feeling that was as much for the reader/viewer as it was for Loki. Loki's next trick? Create a duplicate Thor.
Behold the one who stands before you. The hammer is his. The hammer is his. It worked. Now go to yonder house of wild beasts and set them free.
I must free the beast.
For some reason, the hammer is just lying on the ground instead of returning to him. Soon, we discover something else Loki didn't know.
In that fateful moment, separated from his hammer for more than 60 seconds, Thor, God of Thunder, reverts to the mortal form of Dr. Don Blake, as the hypnotic spell is broken.
In a consistent world, the hammer would change back into a cane too, but today it stays a hammer. Several guys are trying to pick it up and embarrassing themselves.
Let me try.
Are you kidding? Oh, let the poor sap try. It'll be good for a laugh.
But the instant Don Blake touches the enchanted hammer,
Where'd the skinny guy go?
I don't know, but look who's holding the hammer now.
It's the mighty Thor!
Remember the skinny guy? It's amazing what a new hat can do.
Now, Loki, it is time to settle the score between us.
You've shattered my hypnotic spell. I must escape and devise a far deadlier plan than before.
moments later, the Loki dashes into a nearby subway station, pushing helpless bystanders directly in front of an oncoming train.
Not only that, Thor still hasn't done anything about those people's disembodied heads. Saving people from the train is basic day job for Thor, but he knows it was a diversion so Loki could get away.
Up there, he's given life to the winged horse from yonder billboard.
It was most likely an ad for mobile gas stations. They used a Pegasus as their logo pretty much for as long as they existed. Loki is nothing if not an opportunist. That's one reason I can't hate him too much. He's a lot like me. If Thor tries to swing his hammer right now, he'll hit somebody with it. He needs plan B.
These sections of pipe, they are what I need. I pray my aim is as superhuman as my strength. Loki's magic powers are useless with his head thus confined. He will drown unless he is rescued.
Isn't he supposed to be immortal? If he can drown just like anybody else, his godhood has a design flaw. Of course, Thor will rescue him. They're half-brothers after all. You have to respect blood, or whatever is in a god's veins. Thor attaches Loki to his hammer and throws him back to Asgard. Odin decrees that he'll stay here forever. Loki doesn't like that, so he conjures up some smoke that reveals Thor's secret.
Thor. He appears, but wait. I see him changing, becoming an ordinary mortal. Now his magic hammer appears. He touches the hammer and is transformed once more. So that is his secret. He is completely dependent upon the accursed hammer. I shall defeat him at last.
He knows it'll get him in big trouble, but he goes back down the bridge to Earth and Dr. Blake's office.
You, come to me. I command you. I must see Dr. Blake at once.
At once. Go right in.
Heed my instructions. Remember them. And when the time comes, obey.
We didn't see him give her any instructions except let me go in, but maybe he whispered. He reveals himself to Dr. Blake and says, "Meet me in the park in an hour. This time only one of us walks away." At the park, Thor throws his hammer, but Loki sidesteps it. And suddenly, Jane Foster appears.
Loki transforms a nearby shrub into a snarling tiger.
Behold, the mortal female is in dire danger. Save her, or seize your returning hammer. There's only time for one.
It returns to his hand no matter what he's doing, and he's perfectly capable of catching it on the fly while he runs toward the tiger. Except today. He takes care of the tiger, but the hammer is just lying on the ground some ways away.
The Thunder God realizes his magic hammer has been out of his hands for almost 60 seconds. He must touch it before the minute is up, or lose the power of Thor. Too late. The minute has passed. Thor is returning to his mortal identity. Then, before the desperate Don Blake can reach the hammer, Loki creates a magical force field around it.
As I said, this was an early episode and they were still building the world Thor would inhabit. But the hammer always returning to him was a non-negotiable from the beginning. This is a clear violation of that non-negotiable. I don't know that anybody called him out on it back then, so I'll do it now. This is a blow to my suspension of disbelief. There is no reason why it just dropped on the ground like that. I'd check and see if it's still under warranty because something's defective. Loki goes on a spree of trickery, turning cars into ice cream sundaes and other weird stuff. This is the Loki from the mythology. He doesn't do his thing out of malice, he does it for fun. It's his nature. But Don Blake has a plan to get his hammer back.
The next day, a startling headline appears on front pages everywhere. And Loki reacts just as expected.
Thor, it's impossible. He cannot have regained his hammer. I must find out at once. The force field is still intact.
Welcome, Loki. I have been expecting you.
Thor, with your hammer in hand, impossible. I shall remove the force field and see. The hammer is still there. It's not Thor, only a plastic dummy.
Right, and he's not the only dummy.
It's the duplicate you created, genius. You forgot to dispel it when you were done with it. And now there are two Thors. Good luck, dude.
You haven't won yet.
Loki must not escape me again. That net, just the thing to catch a flying bird. Sorry, gentlemen, I need this more than you. I have him.
No, you cannot return me there.
You are too dangerous to remain among the helpless mortals of Earth.
You think? Loki is back in Asgard, put a guard on him this time, duh, and Thor has his hammer back. The comics included a short feature called Tales of Asgard, and it's too bad none of those showed up in this show. I enjoyed them as much as I enjoyed the Thor stories. Tales of Asgard followed three of Thor's friends, Fandral the Dashing, Hogun the Grim, and Volstagg the Voluminous. This is the closest to the 60s look as I could find. Those three experienced a revival some time ago, and if they stuck to the types of stories that were in the old Thor comics, I might have to check them out because those stories were fun. Fandral was always making quips, Hogun didn't get them, and Volstagg was a braggart who somehow always managed to find himself at the back of the battle lines, protecting the rear, or otherwise being somewhere other than the actual battle. They got into some pretty hairy fights, and most of the time you couldn't stop laughing at them. Again, they didn't make it into these cartoons, but there's plenty of other stuff to come. We've met our three primary characters for the series, Thor/Don Blake, Loki, and Jane Foster. She figured prominently in the early stories because Blake was hopelessly in love with her. We'll see all that as we go along. For now, Thor is on Earth, Loki is in Asgard, Jane is in the office, all's well with the world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.
Cross the rainbow bridge of Asgard, where the booming heavens roar. You'll behold in breathless wonder the god of thunder, mighty Thor.
Entertaining repeat of last time. Repeat of last time. Shouldn't Loki have not... Odin degrees? No, inflection was terrible.